Hey everybody, welcome back to another whiteboard chat. And today we are going to go over some lab work. You guys may have seen me post this in my story. This is actually my lab work. We're going to talk about this. This should be, this would put me about 14 weeks post-show. This will be my second set of labs in the post-show period. I will make some comments on the first set too. There are some improvements here, so as one would expect. Let's just start from the top. I'm not going to read every single value, but we'll kind of go over it and the key things that I'm looking at and the key things that I still want to make improvements on, so you guys can kind of see that. So first off, we start on column on this side here. So we have C-reactive protein still at a 0.5. I'm not really too concerned about a 0.5. A 0 is going to be best, but it was at a 2.5 prior, which is more than I would like to see. Again, 2.5, considering that was probably 6 or 7 weeks post-show, is still, again, not that bad in the context of everything. I see that way deep, well into the double digits on a pretty regular basis on some bad labs. Insulin level, 6.7, still maintaining decent sensitivity. Like I can tell also, as far as training, nutrient partitioning and whatnot, how as far as that goes, I can still tell that's good. I did notice that my ferritin was a little on the low end here. I don't know that I had iron checked on these labs. I did. So my iron was mid-range at a 104, and then my ferritin was at 57, which is on the lower end of the range. Again, not overly concerned about it. I'm gonna add a little bit more red meat into the diet. I'm eating it probably twice a week. I'll just bump that up maybe 3 or 4 times a week, and we should probably cover that. It's not like I'm too far out of range. I'm still within the range. I just would like it to be just a touch higher potentially. Thyroid looks good. So we have T3, we had free T3, and this is actually supposed to be free level here. So we had a free T3 and we had free T4, I believe, somewhere on the lab. Both levels were good, and some of the things I didn't list on here, so it was just for the sake of room. Free levels were good, no issues with thyroid there. White blood cell count. See, I'm a little on the fence about this. It's at a 4.3, so it's a bit low. I would really like to see that just a little bit higher, maybe at a 5 or above. Now, I didn't see any issues in platelets. Again, platelets a little low, still in range. Not overly concerned. Immune system still a little bit taxed. I'll talk about that more in a minute. But no issues in neutrophils or lymphs or monocytes or anything like that. So I'm not too concerned there. Again, they're on the low end, not out of range, on the low end. So still a little bit compromised in immune function potentially, or immune system still a little bit taxed potentially. And there's some other things that we can see on here. So my cortisol is at a 12.5, which on paper looks pretty good, for an AM fasted cortisol within a couple hours of waking. But if we look up here, sodium's at a 137 and potassium's at a 4.8. So, and chloride is at a 97. So chloride and sodium are dropping low on the range, and potassium is rising up on the range. Still showing a little bit of sluggish adrenal function. My last cortisol was a 10, I believe, which again, bordering that low end. I start to get concerned at that level, of some adrenal hypofunction. This 12.5 is okay, but I was feeling pretty beat up around the time I did this. So I actually decided this week I'm deloading this week, and I'm backing things off. So this shows me enough here, especially based on the way that I felt that cortisol, while it is okay, is still, matching it up with the sodium being lower and chloride being lower and potassium being higher. The immune cells being just a bit lower than I'd like, showing some hypofunction in adrenals and immune system, so just the body being taxed. So for those of you that aren't familiar, the adrenals do control aldosterone. Now, when we see ratios of sodium and potassium off, that's showing us either a retention or excretion in sodium and fluid, and a retention or excretion in potassium. Generally, with adrenal hyperfunction, we're going to see a higher ratio of sodium and lower ratio of potassium. Chloride could potentially be higher. And then vice versa, with adrenal hypofunction, we would see sodium and water being excreted, and we would see potassium being retained. So that's why we're seeing potassium up on the higher end of the range and sodium down here on the lower end of the range. This is something I've always had to be cognizant of. This is where my body likes to gravitate down in that low range. My cortisol never really goes high. it's either fine or bottomed out. So this isn't bad. I'm gonna, just like I said, take a little bit of a deload. I can feel that I need it, and we'll be back at it. Other noteworthy things, renal function looked good. I was happy with this GFR of 82. I'm good with that. My GFR generally fluctuates between about 80 to 95, you know, depending on hydration level, depending on body weight and things like that. So I'm good with that. Bun, creatinine, okay. We're at a 1.2 on the creatinine, and the bun was at a 20, I believe. So we're right on the top of the range with the bun, and close to the top of the range on the creatinine too. But for, you know, kind of a muscular male, only having a day off from training, I mean, I'm in the GFR of 82. I'm pretty pleased with that renal function. I never really flag any markers in renal function. I can't say that I ever have. Lots of kidney support. I take 1 to 2 servings of Morphogen, Nephrogen every day, depending on, you know, the phase, how heavy I am, etc. Always seems to work well. No other nutrient deficiencies that I really could spot in the red blood cells. Now, I had a couple things that were borderline, and I did see MCV at a 97, top of the range. RDW was bottom of the range, and MCH was top of the range. So I'm bordering on some of these, okay? And I also noticed, you know, so these, for those of you that aren't familiar, could usually indicate either iron deficiencies or B vitamin deficiencies, depending on which marker. And I have a tendency for the B vitamin deficiency, though I do supplement with methylated B vitamins. That's gonna make sure I'm doing that regularly. And my iron is also kind of borderline, so we know that could potentially be an issue. Next was the alkaline phosphatase was actually low. I probably need some more zinc, to be completely honest. I've had issues with zinc deficiency in the past, or zinc copper imbalance, so those compete for absorption. And with my tendency to have higher copper levels, then I tend to have a lower zinc level. So I need to reintroduce zinc supplementation, okay, which I had taken out for a while because the levels were so good. Probably my own fault, probably should have just left it alone, but I'm gonna put that back in, 25 to 30 milligrams a day, zinc glycinate at night with the last meal. You could take it with any meal potentially, but that's one of the things I'm gonna add back in. Liver function looked okay. I did have, AST was at 46, and 0 to 40 is the range, but if any of you male bodybuilders out there know, it's nearly impossible to get your liver enzymes in range unless you take quite a few days off. I can get mine in range. If I take 2 days off, they're normally in range. But right here, pretty close, not really concerned. Other things I'm looking at here, estradiol is, I do aromatize a little more than I would care to, but that is the, you know, nature of my genetics, unfortunately. So estradiol at a 57.4, that is a little bit more of aromatization than a lot of people would be at a testosterone level of 811 here. You'll see that. It is what it is. Not experiencing any liver or GI issues that I can really pinpoint. So I'm, you know, not too concerned that I'm like recirculating a ton of estrogen at this point in the game. Otherwise, most everything else looked pretty good. And the things I'm pointing out aren't anything catastrophic. I'm nitpicking on these things. I'm just making correlations between having seen, you know, probably 50 to 100 sets of labs on myself. I'm just guessing. I've done a lot over the years, and knowing my tendencies and knowing the prep and all of those things. So we'll get the deload in. I will support the zinc. I will make sure I'm continuing to support the B vitamins and the iron, get those adrenals tidied up, and should be in a really good spot. Probably pull labs again in a few months, you know, and kind of see where we're at, and should have everything rocking and rolling. But I'm not unsatisfied with this. I think it's pretty good, all things considered, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video.